Okay, welcome. Welcome to back to this is session one, basically breakout session one, if we'll call it. But we're going to focus on um, the second part of this one, which is called From Design to Pilot. I'm reading it from another screen here. Evaluating the HYCOMM AI-supported HyFlex faculty development workshop across three universities. And so there are slides that go with this, and I'll share those slides a little bit on the screen. We also have a couple of videos to share. This is a project that was started probably a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. It's a EU project with three universities: University of Bergen, Oz University, I forget it's a long name, in Turkey, and University of Barcelona. And there's a different name for that, Autonomous University of Barcelona, in Spain. And so I was invited to be part of this project as kind of an outside advisor, especially around the HyFlex area. And the idea of the project is we talked about this last year at the conference, and so it introduced it. Now we're basically at the pilot stage, and so we wanted to share some results around using AI to infuse the design process and hopefully then to the facilitation of learning process with students in HyFlex courses. And the whole part of the whole project is about building a workshop, essentially, a professional development process, kind of a nine module series for faculty in the EU to go through. And so each module is designed, three modules are designed by each university, essentially. And so, as an external person, I thought, well, there's some interesting challenges here. Even think about something as, relatively homogeneous as the United States. I don't know if you can really say that, but if you had three different systems from three different parts of the U.S. trying to collaborate on a professional development series for something as potentially challenging as HyFlex, and then now let's bring an AI to it, there's a lot of different perspectives here that all kind of have to be balanced. And then there's another team, essentially a technical support team, project management and things like that, kind of external to the universities, that's designed to let's make sure we make this stuff and build it and so that it all looks together. And so this has been an interesting, challenging process to be. And so all three universities have piloted an initial version, at least an initial version, not even the same version necessarily of the courses. Um, One of the challenges was the development process took longer than expected. And so for the universities to meet their pilot timelines, which they all really wanted to do to make sure the grant was moving, the project was moving forward, they took the content they had agreed on and each ended up putting it into a little different container. One group used Canvas and built these modules into Canvas, and another group used Moodle and built these modules into Moodle. Another group, I think, used a different version of essentially their own Moodle aspect of this. And so the idea is that the core content stayed the same, but the way it was delivered was differently. Some of them did more facilitation, some of them did it more asynchronous. And so it's interesting to see all the different ways they did this. They got a lot of interesting feedback from their students who are basically faculty or designers at the universities. So I'll go through the summary slides first. But first of all, I want to show you, or we want to play a couple of videos from University of Bergen and our Turkish university because they wanted to talk to you specifically, and they weren't able to be here at the time. The timing is just it's just not good, not good for some of this. So let's see if I can get this to share. We will try to share a video. We'll share sound. We'll optimize for video sharing, and we'll go to, this is from the University of Bergen, and this is Kinan, and he introduced himself. So I'm going to make this a little larger. Oops, I don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay, let's try again. You think I'd be better at this, but I'm not. Oh, well, I'm doing the whole desktop. If I do this, let's use that. This should be simpler, right? Whole desktop. So let's make this big. Let's start it playing, and here you go.
One, I'm going to present the pilot implementation at the University of Bergen. So in our pilot study, we have designed a course for university teachers that extended over 4 months almost, where people engage with the HyFlex design in a HyFlex way. So they participated in the course in 3 different modes as they wish, but we asked them to basically be online or in class in the last session and in the first session, just to give them a bit about the course and how the course will be delivered. And we had over 25 students in the course who created their kind of pilot study for their courses. So it was a kind of pilot course design for them where they are making use of pedagogical principles of HyFlex design. So we collected data from our participants during the course with one-on-one discussions and group discussions. And at the end of the course, we asked them to form focus group, and we took a lot of notes and recorded the sessions of discussions to be able to access their feedback. So their experiences, of course, varied as in all other kind of HyFlex implementations. Specifically for Norway, there was need for a flexibility because students are kind of living in geographically dispersed places, and sometimes it's hard to commute in different ways. That's why HyFlex will support their varying schedules because most of the students and students are working as well and they have other commitments. But actually, as an opportunity, they also highlighted that there is a lot of autonomous decisions and ownership of learning process and the control over their own learning by making a lot of choices. So the university teachers explained this in a clear way. And also they highlighted that there was an opportunity for students, if they design their HyFlex course, accessing diverse content formats and sources which would support their learning. However, they also underlined some challenges. One of them is like choice, how students would make their choices, because some of them, as they said, say, just tell me what to do rather than, expect me to make choices of how I would learn. That was a couple of participants' reactions when we asked the challenges. And then they also talk about the anxiety that could emerge as a result of making wrong participation choice, thinking that they can learn alone asynchronously, but maybe that's a wrong choice and they may not learn enough and in that. They also talk about the time compression, time pressures, which could encourage surface learning. That was understandable in many ways. One mentioned younger students may lack metacognitive readiness to make choices, to understand how they can learn alone without full guidance, without in-class discussions, etc. So their reactions were mainly about the asynchronous people who would choose asynchronous participation where they can actually not learn enough. And then in digital context, they also emphasize that there could be reduced capacity for sustained attention without kind of support or without social interaction. That was another challenge they highlighted in the first place. And some of the students, for example, said HyFlex is good when I'm adult. I know what I want. I know how I learn, but I mean, the student was raising the concerns about the younger people, younger students who will need more structure. Yeah, and then another participant mentioned that there is need for motivation here. If they are motivated, they will do it. But I think this person mentioned the tension between, being autonomous and the need for guided support and accountability. And we also asked for some kind of feedback on the modules that they were taking as a result of this HyFlex uh, HYCOMM project. We implemented almost 5 different modules of the 9 modules in our course. And some teachers said their role, their identity shifted from being a lecturer imparting knowledge to being a facilitator or an orchestrator of all these different modalities. Some mentioned that it gives more time for students to interact, to engage with the content because they can kind of access the resources multiple times asynchronously. That was one of the advantages and opportunities they highlighted. And they also saw the value of using asynchronous resources in multiple times. Then they can reuse, recycle the same documents and same materials for different pedagogical purposes. And also they mentioned that there is a lot of opportunity and room for active learning when the courses are designed as HyFlex. But they also talk about challenges because they said we need to prepare a lot of work before you start HyFlex. So like prior workload might be doubled or tripled. But I think we also explained that this is going to be just for the beginning, and then you might have a clear structure where reusable materials can actually be adapted each year for different purposes with less workload. Another challenge they mentioned is how to strike a balance between synchronous, asynchronous, and in-person modes. And that is because of the number of students they had. They said, how am I going to manage 100 plus student cohort in the classroom when they are choosing different participation modes? And we were discussing how HyFlex could be a teamwork where multiple teachers could have different responsibilities to manage large classes. And also they mentioned that, when AI is used in HyFlex designs, there is going to be institutional policy gaps in terms of how students should use AI, how teachers should react to students' AI use, etc. That was something they have raised as well. And there were institutional issues, like they said, we don't have HyFlex ready classrooms. Classrooms are not tech savvy, at least not enough. That was something they were expecting the institutions to address. And also, it was unclear that institutions have clear deadlines, and which was actually delaying the AI integration in their classes, and they were remaining in limbo in many ways. And if AI and HyFlex are combined in a way, how will that work? And then they were also talking about this rapid pace of change in digital environment and how will institution provide support for that. And they were also talking about the reduced sense of shared ownership between the institution and their own decisions in the classroom or in the faculty. In general, we also sought some feedback for the modules they were experimenting. It was important for us to access this feedback because we were going to revise all the modules that we implemented and the others in line with the given and received feedback. And one of the things they mentioned, this across modules, there was a lot of repetition of what HyFlex is because each module was designed by different partners in the project, and it was normal that we all kind of wanted to highlight different aspects of HyFlex. What is it and how it can be used, and the challenges and the kind of principles. So each time they started the module, they had to recover, they had to repeat that information. And then some of them mentioned that participants lost track of new versus reviewed material, infographics changed minimally, slide to slide. So they wanted kind of more consistency across the materials. But they appreciated AI exercises, hands-on course design tasks, and actually wanted more practice that could have been built progressively across the modules. That was good. And also, they had this navigation issue between the lessons and the course modules. It was not, they wanted more like non-linear and kind of recyclable process. Because of this, I think they had some issues of going back and forth among the modules and going to the next task that they need to complete. So we have addressed all these though. Yeah. So finally, many people, mentioned some concerns. I will be talking about that a bit. Some of them mentioned this negative emotional aspects of generated AI videos, like in terms of tone of voice, in terms of imagery that they are exposed to. Basically, there was just one single sound, male sound in the videos, which they didn't want, and they wanted more variety and the gender representation in the voices, in the images, which was understandable, and we addressed that. And then one or two participants mentioned that all AI content used in the videos are closing down rather than inviting critique, or rather than offering some options and being more like kind of politely inviting people to think about how AI can be used, what HyFlex is. It was kind of, they said that the sound is very authorial rather than suggestive. And then some participants requested empirical evidence on format equivalency. It means, how do we make sure that across the modalities you can ensure there is equivalency of the content to be covered, or of the task that will be completed by the participants. So that was a big concern because they said, how am I going to make sure that all tasks across the modules and modalities are equivalently designed and presented? And then generally, participants also requested that institutional issues should be highlighted more, and then where actually institutions are critically assessing the change in the way they can design their courses as HyFlex in higher education. And then they were actually wanting more political and organizational contextual issues in the modules framing as well. They wanted more critical understanding of why HyFlex and how it can be kind of placed in the faculty course curriculums, and then how the institution can support them. So basically, we have seen these five tensions. One of them was like flexibility versus overload. They want flexibility, they want to implement it, but there is a lot of overloaded work for them. Choice and guidance, depending on the students and the classes, I think they said choice is good, but some people really need guidance rather than making independent choices. And then the efficiency versus deep learning. So how can they make sure that asynchronous students and online students can actually experience a deep learning, although the design could be efficient for logistical and contextual purposes? Technology and human connection, and they also talk about the social interaction that might be missed when people participate asynchronously or even online. That was another issue, and then I think we have addressed that in a way in our training to find ways of connecting, participants across modalities and giving them tasks that can work well for social interaction. And also the access versus responsibility, when they were concerned about the level of responsibility participant would take, and then how can that be efficient and desirable in terms of course expectations. So these are the feedback that we have received from people. Thank you very much for listening.
So that's the feedback from one of the universities. I was out there when they did the debrief session with our participants, And there's a couple of things interesting about the way they did their pilot. They basically did a hybrid pilot where they mandated them to be part of an initial session and a last session, and then they did the rest of the work on their own over a period of weeks. But the mandate wasn't like fixed in stone. So if they couldn't be there or chose not to be there for the synchronous sessions, they made accommodations for those other faculty participants to be part of the debriefing process or the kickoff process. So they had that own version for it. And they were also picking, most of their faculty were relatively new faculty. These were faculty who were required to do a certain number of professional development hours in at the university there, and so this credited them as part of that requirement for the particular year. So that's what the faculty were getting from them, but they were relatively new faculty, and most of them had never done any HyFlex. And they weren't all planning to do HyFlex necessarily, but they were all at least interested enough to spend the time to learn more about it. You can recognize some of the challenges that just came through from Kenan's comments. Think about this: just working within your particular system or state or region, how challenging it would be to create essentially these motivating but also equipping messages around HyFlex and the use of AI, both together at different levels of your educational system, or even just different environments. Now think about that, doing that in across different countries, I'm amazed that they're able to put together the package that they are. I'll also say that all the comments he was making about the way that the modules were created, that they built themselves based on the overall templates. The team put together a whole nother version of this that is now being done in review process, and so that has to go through a whole nother level of review before that should be produced and delivered. So anyway, that's from the perspective from one university. What I'm going to do now is try to show you. I'm gonna put the presentation slides up here, and then we'll run a video from Azizcan University in Turkey, and I wanted to have their slides background because their slides are not part of the video presentation. So let's see if we can make this. Let's see if we can make this work. So we're going to. I am going to change the player here and move this back over. And we'll see if we can make this one work. So, all right, so I'm going to share this window again. And after it starts, I'll be rearranging some things here. Okay, so this is Hakan, who is a senior designer, has been a faculty member as well in Turkey for many years. And did I choose the right things? Let me just make sure I've got the video selected for sound. Yeah, it's sound. It's set. Great. Thank you for bearing with me. So let's hear from Hakan.
Hello, everyone. This is Cengiz Hakan Aydın. I use my middle name Hakan. Let me briefly introduce my institution. Özyeğin University, shortly we call it ÖZÜ, is a private university. We have around 9,000 students and 6,500 of them undergraduate level students. Among those undergraduate level, nearly 20% are international. So we have a diverse student body here, and we offer 25 degree programs in the undergraduate level. 24 of them are offered in English. And we have programs in business, aviation, architecture, engineering, social sciences, and law. In terms of me, I'm the director of Office of Learning and Teaching Enhancement. We call it OLTE shortly, which is sort of a Center for Teaching and Learning in US universities. What we do is we support faculty and also we support students. So student success is also under our responsibility. Personally, I'm an educational technologist. I've been studying educational technology for, I don't know, nearly 40 years. And in terms of HyFlex learning at ÖZÜ, there are several problems we are experiencing at ÖZE in terms of general education, providing education to all. First of all, our campus is located a bit far from the city center in Istanbul, and there's a huge traffic jam also in Istanbul, so it is difficult for students and even for professors to come to campus sometimes, especially during winter times. Sometimes we have heavy snow or heavy rain, so it's difficult to reach here. Also, Turkey is an earthquake country. Sometimes we do have big earthquakes. During those times, we offer online courses, rather online. We employ online modality so that everybody stays safe at where they are. The other the important thing is our international students. We have students from Asia, Africa, Nordic countries, Russia, and all different countries. And sometimes they're having difficulty to travel back and forth to Turkey. So sometimes they're having difficulty to reach their classes, and we try to offer them as much as we can learning opportunities for them, and we try to provide the education where they are. So, and also the other problem is since we have the diverse student body, there are different backgrounds and different study habits. It's difficult to sort of offer one size fits all kind of a instructional approach in all classes. Those are our problems, and we strongly believe in that HyFlex learning is a solution for us. So we were very eager to be partners in the HYCOMM project, and we helped designing the training. And right now we are piloting it. It's an ongoing process. We have 2 more weeks to complete, and I'm here to experience the major findings of our piloting. We are hoping that at the end of August or beginning of September, we will be running another cycle of this training with the new participants. Currently, we accepted only teachers from our prep school, language school. We have 41 participants. They're eager to learn. They're really working hard. And they all value, that's something to the major finding we found, that they really value the importance of HyFlex learning and providing the same education in different modalities. I was a little bit surprised, to tell the truth, but they really value that. I'm wondering in the next cycle we will include professors from other faculties, other colleges, so I'm wondering if they will feel the same. The other major finding is it was interesting to see that designing face-to-face activities or designing a classroom for that modality, face-to-face modality, or completely online asynchronous modality is not a problem. They are fine. Our participants feel comfortable. But designing learning activities, learning materials, learning activities, assessment strategies for hybrid classroom is quite difficult for them. What we found that when we asked them to design learning activities for hybrid classrooms, they mainly design for the face-to-face students, not those students participating in the class online. So this was a good lesson for us. We are in the process of developing some cases, some best practices and some sort of guidelines how they can implement hybrid classroom pedagogies or hybrid classroom activities in their regular classes. So that those two things, first, they all value it. They think that it's very important, and we definitely design all of our courses in HyFlex mode, so that we must be ready to be able to offer those our courses in different modalities. The other thing is hybrid classroom, not blended, not face to face, not asynchronous modes, but hybrid mode is the most difficult one for them. So we have to focus on hybrid pedagogies or activities, special learning activities to design learning activities for hybrid classrooms, so that especially students, online students, will be more engaged in learning process, not just the face-to-face ones in hybrid classrooms. Thank you again, and I hope this give you an idea.
So what you heard Hakan talk about, I mean, their perspective is different. That's a very different university than the University of Bergen. It's a private university, a lot more, seems like a lot more control, but also I would say more like market driven, right? They have to attract university students, and they're not like the only university in town, in Istanbul. The challenges that they have with the diverse students and the dispersed students are pretty substantial, just like many institutions are. What I'm going to do is share some slides here from the University of the Autonomous University of Barcelona, and that one I'll probably do. Let's just do the. I don't want to do the desktop. Here we go. Let's try this one. We'll just do the presentation piece of this one over here, and we'll keep it simple. And so. And I'll let you show you what they have here. They weren't able to create a video for this. Their pilot has also been finished. What is interesting to me from an external perspective to see this is how the different institutions, follow a little different process for the piloting, which you would expect, but also the need for paying attention to the pilot, not just to see whether or not or how well the solution works with your intended audience, but also to learn a lot about your own faculty and their perspectives on this. I don't think any of these institutions has ever spent this much time listening to their basically their service group is their faculty, about HyFlex and about AI and together in particular. AI is still new here like it is everywhere, but they're getting this opportunity to learn a lot about the faculty and hear things that they had never really were asking questions about, quite honestly. So in Barcelona, these are the things that they were finding. You might see a lot of similarity in here compared to the other ones. The opportunities, the flexibility, the accessibility, diverse students, etc. That's pretty common. That's been common really across the board. That's one of the original reasons why we did something like this, back in the day. Self-paced learning and resource reuse, okay? Encourages active engagement, learner autonomy, expanding participation through multiple learning pathways, all positive, right? Those are all the things that we would expect to be on the plus side of why we might do this. Now, of course, they have the same challenges, very similar challenges, high workload for design. I was just thinking of this when I was building my latest course out here, is this idea of, I wonder if I actually put it on a timeline, how long it takes to build this course out in a HyFlex format. And I would, and from my perspective, it's usually roughly probably a multi-week process to build the asynchronous course, and then a much shorter process that's often timed like almost like on a weekly basis. Okay, let's make sure we're set up for the synchronous or the classroom. For me, that's more of the ongoing work. It's the beginning part of this to build the course out. And how's that different than a synchronous course or a face-to-face course? It's definitely different in creating all the LMS materials. The content-wise and the activity-wise, all those designs isn't so much different from my perspective. So the workload, it's very real, and it shows up obviously in everyone. And every time I've done a workshop, this is always one of the concerns. And when we actually help faculty work through this, this is always one of the concerns. And so that tension that Kenan had in his slides between the flexibility and the workload, that doesn't, I mean, you don't get tension unless you have both parts there. So all of these, I mean, it's a this versus that, but it's not going to be an either or decision. It's always an and. How do you manage the need for flexibility and designing for flexibility as well as the workload it takes to actually create those designs? All of those tensions are ongoing and they're always there. Asynchronous participation engagement, yeah, exactly. Especially with a larger group. I think Hakan was saying they had 41 students in theirs. I'm not sure exactly how many students were in the Barcelona pilot. I don't have that data, but I know when I've done the larger discussions, I've had to have creative ways to create discussions that work not just for the students but also for me. Because even with 50 students in one of my classes, too many students in a particular discussion changes it from a discussion to I don't know what it would be, a public forum, which isn't really a place for a lot of in-depth discussion for everybody. So you need different approaches there. So they were interested in challenging with building student-teacher connection. Yeah, definitely. Self-regulation, belonging, and community. Definitely. These are all important challenges, right? And these are all things that many of us who are designing and building these courses and teaching them come up with our own solutions to move in these directions, some more than others, most likely. Of course, there are lots of institutional issues, just like in all the other places. Some of these are similar, some of them are differently, right? UAB has a kind of a face-to-face community, like many of our institutions have, especially if we haven't done a lot of online programs or courses. What does it really mean to teach HyFlex? And how about that workload? How do we manage that? Is this a compensated workload increase? Is it just something that's assumed if you want to teach this way, you're going to do this? Or is it just part of being, instructional practitioner in the 21st century? I don't know. Classroom readiness, of course. I would say that one of the things I've noticed is that I might have mentioned in some other remarks I've made that we started with nothing in the classroom, essentially, as far as technology. We built in the solutions we needed over a period of years. Now, oftentimes the expectation is I come into a fully equipped classroom that works, push the button and it works for me, and this is kind of some of the expectation. And when that's not the case at an institution, oftentimes it's one of the big hurdles to get people to even consider HyFlex if they don't see the technology there or they don't know how to use it. So this is always a challenge. Institutional guidance, right? Flexibility, AI use. Part of a pilot is, I think, to help answer questions about what should that institutional guidance be, especially around flexibility. AI use, we're all kind of figuring out, but even around HyFlex, what does it mean to give flexibility to students? How much flexibility? What about faculty flexibility? Is there any room for that? Can modes change over time? What about a faculty who goes to a conference? Do they have to teach class? Is it all online, or what? All that stuff maybe factors into this. And then from the module level feedback, they had some similar feedback, and you might see some of that reflected here. In this first version, I know most of the videos that were used using an AI tool like Synthesia or something like that. And they were very shallow. They were there just to show AI videos, but they weren't all that meaningful. And in the later version, I believe most of those, I think, are gone because I think the realization was just to show AI how AI can do something in a training world in particular. If it's not relevant to the training experience itself, it maybe is a disservice to show that. So if you're going to use an example of AI, make it meaningful for the learner so they can see the value of doing that. And then you can talk about, well, actually, normally this would have taken me 3 hours to do, and now I can do it in essentially 20 minutes of back and forth. So some of their critical reflections, just take a moment on this. We're going to be stopping here. If you do have questions, you can put those into the chat, and I may be able to try to answer some of those. But other questions can send right off to the colleagues, or you can contact them themselves. I can get you the contact information if it's not here on the slide for you. Yeah, so there was a big understanding of the pedagogical challenges, and this is something that their pilot group was coming up with. Let's see. The flexibility really matters to their students. That's often something we often see. The student success depends a lot on the student, right? You give the student agency, and then the student's ability to use that agency kind of like wisely from a learning perspective becomes even more important. So we need to have, the better students in general are usually the better students in HyFlex. The nice thing is, I think, and this is something that we tend to forget about, is that if a student is not a good online learner, they have no interest in learning how to learn online or doing that well, they can have the classroom, and that's easy to say from an external side, like not being the student, but then the students often find themselves in situations where being there in person just isn't possible this time. Now what do I do? And so, that's attention, clearly attention. Okay, critical reflections over here on the right. Yep, I think these are important takeaways. None of these universities, once they have the next version of this together over the next few months, are still going to be, in a perfect place for implementing HyFlex. But what they're doing is investing the time to work together on this, because what they're trying to do is build a solution that works not just for their institution, but for other institutions across the European Union, which is a huge audience, as you can imagine. All right. So this is kind of where they're at right now. Uh, I think that one of the challenges of a project like this, if you're going to embed an AI tools into a cross-university platform, imagine the challenges for that. I mean, think of the challenges you have just at your own institution to bring in AI tools into your own instruction or your own workshops or things like that. You may have access to a lot of different tools within your organizational environment, or you may have access to no tools, and so you just rely on people using whatever tools they can find. How do you support them? Do you build custom tools for them to use? What platform are they on? Do you have access to your own platform? Do you just give them prompts and teach them how to do the prompting and rely on them to do the prompting? That may be one thing. Do you build, files that they can download and run on different platforms? Like you'll say you create a custom GPT and ChatGPT. You can export files in particular ways and put them together into a package that someone could potentially download and then attach those files to like a Claude prompt or a Gemini prompt or things like that that could run well or reasonably well. But at what level is this a technology challenge that we don't want to put that hurdle in front of people? So we don't have great solutions for this yet. People like Gloria are working really hard to make this work. And so I think that over the next year we're going to have better solutions, but we're not there yet. Another challenge of creating professional development like this, right? 3 different institutions involved. Who owns it afterwards? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to update it? Even if this has the grant has a certain amount of time. Let's say it's a 5-year run for the professional development. Well, guess who's going to revise it next year, right? Or the year after, so that it remains accurate. And will the universities have the ability to make their own revisions to run it locally? I don't know the answer to that question, but it's just something that came to mind. Okay, I think that's all that I have that's covered here. If you have any comments, what do you think? Would something like this work in your system? Would it be useful to you?
I was curious, now that you've had the pilot and you mentioned just now a little bit about what are the next steps? Mm-hmm.
Right. So they are now the kind of the technology implementation team has basically solved the what AI platform do we use, and so they are building AI essentially tools within the system. I don't know the back end of that, but they're using some sort of a platform in behind it, so that it's all native to the workshop materials, which I think is important. I was showing them a lot of the things I had done, and I said, look, these are examples of what you could do, but don't try to use these specifically. These links will work, but if I close my account on this, it's gone. So don't rely on that. And so finally, it took a while to convince him that that's the case. They're building their own, which is nice.
Yeah.
But they are right now. They have rebuilt one module in kind of this new approach. And what they're doing now is gathering feedback from the design teams about that module, and then based on the feedback they get, they'll make revisions and then do all of the modules that way. My strong guidance at this point was if you want to support learning for students, you should take this revisioned module approach and run it through students, your participant learners, not just the design teams. I mean, if we have subject matter experts essentially, who are the only ones giving us feedback on these designs that are designed for student learning, guess what we end up with? we end up with designs that are cool for the subject matter experts, but not necessarily for the learner population. So I'm hoping that they'll be able to do some more of that. But they, like every grant, they've got some timeline deadlines they have to meet, and by the end of the year, this should be pretty well wrapped up and ready to go.
Thank you.
At some point, I don't know, and I don't know how they're going to disseminate it to other institutions across the EU. And I don't know if institutions outside the EU will have access to this. It's the HYCOMM project, and they have a nice website that you can get information about, but I'm not sure about access to the actual training.
Yeah, hello?
Yes.
I was going to make a comment, a few comments about the talk you've just given. And first of all, I think that, transformation of learning design for HyFlex teaching, I think we've begun to realize is a massive longer term project, and that it's not going to happen overnight. And I was quite struck by a comment made at a recent teaching and learning conference we had, where a colleague talked about strategic micro pivots, which I thought was quite an interesting way of looking at how you might focus, for example, on pre-sessional materials or one synchronous live activity. Just focus on that one, design it well, and then try it out in your teaching, for example, as one of those small micro pivots. I think also for us, I echo your thoughts about student involvement, and we've just done a big review of postgraduate teaching here at Birkbeck in London, and that out of that review will come a recommendation for students to be involved in all module design. And of course, that reflects many kind of design models like the ABC one championed by Diana Laurillard. But then you invite the students and they don't come. Anyway, hopefully we're going to get renewed focus there. Another thing that we've done just recently is updated our baseline standards for our Moodle environment, and those now incorporate our HyFlex, the HyFlex elements, which is fantastic because that now gives us another lever, if you like. Also, far more faculty sharing sessions, and also cross-faculty, because many ask to find out what everyone else is doing, and building exemplar HyFlex courses so that other teachers can see them. Also, a reflection on your maturity. One thing we've noticed here at Birkbeck, now that we've HyFlexed our whole estate, and our 10 lecture theatres are hybrid, not HyFlex. So we've made sure there's that clear distinction. But what we've noticed is, with that maturity of the classroom tech, that you're getting a completely different attitude of our staff in this transformation of design thinking. So they're more ready to come to the party because the tech is more reliable, more stable, and more usable. So that's been a really interesting one. And finally, I want to say at our institution, we allow students to flip between, so in any one module, they can come or not come. It's up to them in those modules that are HyFlex. And but of course, that brings its own set of issues, because how do you build community in those sorts of spaces? And I think that one answer, particularly at lower levels, is to actually make perhaps the first and second sessions on site only, so that you can help build that community. But just a few reflections here. Sorry, I didn't say anything about AI.
Hey, that's okay. Yeah, I will say this. One of the things I've found is that on our campus in particular, we are much more comfortable with small changes in our regular teaching practices that basically are hybridizing our teaching. So now if a student needs to connect and wants to do a Zoom connection, and the faculty can support that, even though it's not part of their design, they're more likely to do it than they ever were before. When students are asking for a particular version of materials that that work for them, our institution has always been ready to support that. But now the faculty are much more willing to support that request, or even just recording their lectures and providing them as follow-on access after a student has finished a class. Before the pandemic, it was some faculty were like, no way, not ever. Now it's much more likely to say, sure, I can do that, and give them access to that. So I think we're making small changes towards this idea of flexibility, not necessarily HyFlex. HyFlex has it's a bit of a loaded term in some cases, and if it's HyFlex if it's going to be HyFlex, it has to be all the time, the whole thing. That is something that is a bit of a hurdle. It's obviously a hurdle to get over, and it's appropriate in some ways, so you can market it that way, so you can prepare for it that way, so students aren't surprised by not being available. And yet, in the larger picture, at our institution at least, this idea of hybridizing in small ways, and especially at them as the need is established, is kind of the way the majority of the classes have been shifting, and our technology in the classrooms have been certainly supporting that. So it is a work in progress. Yes. I think we are at time, so we'll stop here. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we will reconvene in about 10 minutes or a little less for our next event, which I think is that the student panel? Gloria, do you know that? Yeah, student panel. That'll be a different link. So go back to Sched and find a new link, and it should be good to hear from our students as well. Thanks very much for being here.